Hi, my name is Peter Komalafe and this is my story. So I was born in 1979 and I missed the cusp of millennial, the status of millennial, by about 1 year. But I'm a child to migrant parents. My parents came over from Nigeria in mid-70s. They came over here to work. And because they had work commitments and 3 older brothers that I later met when I was 8 years old, I was fostered from basically 4 months until I was 8 years old, which meant that I grew up predominantly in a East Sussex, I should say, town called Hastings. And it was interesting growing up in the 80s. It was a very, very different time back then. And in the 80s, going to school, being one of maybe a handful of black kids in the school was very, very interesting around the realizations and the lessons that I learned in terms of being different at that age. And kids do say cool things, but I think one of the things that has been an eternal blessing to me when I look back over those periods of times were my foster parents. Me moving to Nigeria because my parents sent for me was a surprise to me, and I think a surprise to them as well. I still don't fully understand or know the circumstances around that. It's something that I've wondered about for years, and it's something that I want to know more about because for me, I was supposed to go for a 2-week holiday. I ended up there for 10 years. And then I rocked back on their doorstep 10 years later. Surprise, here I am.
How are you feeling for today? How are you feeling about this whole thing?
Mixed emotions, I guess. I haven't seen my foster dad for a while, so I've actually had a conversation with him for years, and I've never had this kind of conversation with him, so I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know what to expect, let's put it that way. So it's kind of like going into something completely not knowing what the outcome is going to be. He could say anything. I don't know what I was like as a kid. I don't know how the whole fostering me came about. I have no idea about any of that. So I'm going to learn maybe a few things that I didn't even know myself. But I'm definitely nervous about it, and I'm excited to be down in Hastings again. I haven't been here for maybe 4 or 5 years. It is familiar, let's put it that way. Very, very familiar. School that I used to go to, and there weren't all these trees there last time before, but behind these houses there's a school that I used to go to. Primary school. It's literally just behind these buildings right here. When I got my first job, I used to walk. Well, I could have walked through here, through this road right here, to get to Silver Hill, which is further up the road, but I used to walk down here, up that hill, for no apparent reason, and then do a right and walk all the way across when I could just cut through here. Learnt that the hard way in the end. But this right here was my neighbourhood when I was a kid. We had a bank of shops down there that we always used to go to get our chocolates and our sweets and everything from. And this was pretty much our neighbourhood. Hollandson Junior School is literally just down there. So we used to at least walk around the corner from the house, down there, and where I used to live is right here, on Quebec Road. So we used to live literally right there. And yeah, man. We used to come out my house right there. And they had a rule when I was growing up that I wasn't really allowed to cross the road because obviously I was fostered, so I wasn't their kid. And so safety was always a bit like a really big thing to them. I could go to the end of this road right here. I couldn't cross the threshold. And I could go anywhere up until probably about halfway down this road. Right at the end there was a field we used to play football and stuff like that. And all my friends used to ride bikes. I never learned to ride a bike until I was pretty much in my 20s, the first time I learned to ride a bike. We just didn't have the money for one. At least I did have one, but we had a puncture. And I don't know why it didn't get fixed, but this really does bring back some memories, man. This really is my childhood. And right next to us here at 81, my best friend when I was a kid, a guy called Glenn Mills, he used to live there. And he and I were like peas in a pod. We were like buddies, almost inseparable. We went to school together, ate together, everything. And it's a shame I don't have any pictures from back then. But this really does bring back a lot of memories. Not much has really changed, to be honest. And I used to spend hours and hours hanging outside that door right there. Because a bunch of my friends used to live there. And we used to spend hours and hours and hours there. Adam and Troy used to live right there. That was such a long time ago, man, but it feels like it was yesterday, if that makes any sense. It's just really, really strange. We never really went down to that part of the road at all. It was pretty much just here. And down, when you cut through here, you can go straight down to the shops at the bottom. So whenever we used to run an errand, we would come literally through here, run down there, then come back up this way, essentially to the shops. Yeah. You right?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Bring back memories.
It does, yeah. I was just talking through, kind of like hanging out here and Adam and Troy being there.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
everyone being there.
Gone years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're in Brighton now.
Are they?
Yeah, I think they're in Brighton now and everything.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it feels like I was saying to Tim. It feels very familiar because it's like
Yeah.
spent quite some time here.
Well, of course, you grew up in, and
Yeah.
school was just over there.
Just there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could have
Wellington
gone.
Square or
Yeah. Well, if you
is
can
it
get
timed?
it, you can try it. Yeah, we tried Wellington Square.
One thing I never knew, and I never had this conversation with my parents because it wasn't a conversation to have or to be had. I understood why they obviously wanted me to be fostered because obviously they had jobs, they were studying, they just didn't have the time. And even till today, I kind of, I make the joke that I was a bit of a surprise maybe because I don't know whether you know, but they had 3 older boys, then they had me being
I know
the 4th.
that you have brothers, yes.
Yeah. So our second born in the family was also named Pete.
Yeah.
So for me, I was kind of like, okay, well, you have one Pete, but you called another Pete. So maybe you just forgot that you had one Pete. So maybe I was a surprise.
Yeah.
That's always been my running joke.
Yeah.
But I never really got to kind of understand or kind of know how the whole fostering came about. And I'd love to hear your side of the story
Right,
on that.
now then, can you remember the big lady that lived around the corner called
Phyllis.
Phyllis?
Yeah.
Auntie Phyllis.
Yeah.
Now, she was on CB and her handle was foster mum. Now, she used to foster children. Now, when Sylvia, my wife, and became your mum, when we first moved into Hollington, we had no money as such, and we had 2 children, young children. Foster mum used to give us a lot of food and things like that, and she was the one that suggested that, because we only intended to have 2 children, we had a boy and a girl, and I said, we don't need any more children, and she said, well, because Sylvia, your mum, was getting very, what's the word?
Broody.
Broody,
Yeah.
with all the foster children around the corner. So Phyllis said, why don't you foster? So we did, and you were the first one. And you spent a lot of time around there, didn't you, with the other children?
I remember that. I do remember that.
You know, I mean, she had a heart of gold, that woman. She'd do anything for anybody. And that was the start of it. Yeah. Well, of course, in the time that you came along, we then fell for Joseph. So you grew up with our youngest.
Yeah.
And and you live with the other two as well. And you know, it was a happy family, and we were very upset when your parents took you away to Nigeria, which we didn't know of at the time, you know, and Sylvia always thought that you blamed her for you going to Nigeria.
Yeah. I think when I got into London, they were like, oh, you're going on the plane, you're going to Nigeria. And I was like, what? So they're only going for 2 weeks and then you'll be back. So me being sort of 7, I was excited. I'm going to get to go on the plane for the first time. And that was exciting for me. I didn't know anything about it. And obviously, when I got over there, shock and horror. I mean, they put me on a plane all by myself. So
Oh, you went on your own?
I went on my own. And they had people waiting for me at Lagos International.
Who you would not have known.
Who I wouldn't have known. The only person that I recognised was my older brother that I did meet when he was here, and I think he came down for a bit. But I remember being in London and spending a bit of time with him during that summer, that year when he came over. I remember that distinctly because I didn't know what to do. It's like, I'm in the middle of nowhere in Nigeria, and all of a sudden I'm supposed to be here for 2 weeks, meeting people that I'd never met before. I knew one member of my family, obviously I knew my mum and my dad, but not really that much, to be fair. And it was just really, really strange.
What happened with your schooling? Because when you were here, you were quite a bright lad, and you got on well at school, everybody liked you. So what happened to schooling in Nigeria? Did you go to school?
Yeah, I did all right in school. I finished primary out there.
Yeah.
That was a culture shock as well.
Yeah.
Because just going from being English speaking, not speaking the local language, I was a target in school because I was completely alien, pretty much.
Yeah.
I did well in school. I did secondary education out there. My dad obviously wanted me to be a doctor, medical doctor. So I did physics, chemistry, biology. I did all the A levels and everything out there. So I did well. But all the time that I was out there for the whole 10 years, all I wanted was to really just come back.
Yeah.
And because I think they realized what they had done when I was still there 5 years in and refused to speak the language, refused to learn the language. That was my way of getting, my only way of actually getting back at them.
That was your protest.
I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just happy to get out of there, if I'm honest, because for me it was more opportunity. I knew that I could do more here than doing over there.
Yeah.
But I never really I can guess what it must have been like for me to just rock up on your doorstep.
Yeah.
But I've never asked you what it was like.
Yeah, well, Mum always thought that you blamed her for going away to Nigeria because we didn't know that your mum and dad came down in the car and said, well, we're taking family home for a couple of weeks in London, the normal summer thing, you know. And we always remember your face when you looked out the side window when you went, you know, you weren't happy, Mum was not happy. And it was about a month later, one of your aunties came down because we still had children, and I think Phyllis had some children. And she came round and said, you know, family's in Nigeria. What? We knew nothing about it, you know, and so Mum was upset that Sam, your dad, didn't tell us, you know, and I mean, you're their child, so that they had jurisdiction over you. But as far as we were concerned, you were our boy. I think people like yourself that get the hard knocks, you're more determined than ever to succeed, and I think you have.
On the plane over, I was petrified that you wouldn't live at the same address. And in my head, I was thinking, what will I do then?
Yeah, quite.
And I was a little pissed off, if I'm honest, that they put me in a position where they just said, there you go. Kind of like the way they got me on the plane to go back out there. They did the same on the way, sending me over. There's a suitcase, there's 50 quid.
I know it was a shock when you turned up.
I could imagine it was.
We had no inkling that you were going to turn up, you know. We hadn't forgotten about you, but we've got no contact. I mean, we never saw Samuel or Eunice again, you know, and...
I don't know what the future holds. Just having this conversation with you has been a nice way for me to maybe just connect a few of the dots that I didn't even know that I could connect. But it definitely helps me make sense of where I am right now and maybe some of the things that I want to do next. Not even from like a work or career point of view, but just from my own like sense of self, knowing myself, because I'm still on the journey to fully understand where I am and everything. But thank you for this, because we've never had this conversation before. And it's been one that I've wanted to have like for a while. So when I landed back in the UK when I was 17 years old, I was buzzing. I was 17 years old, I was 5'5". I probably looked about 12, and literally I looked like 12, no kidding. I had a growth spurt when I was in my 20s. I'm 6'2" now, but it took me a while to get to 6'2". So when I landed back in the UK, I was happy to finally be back. I spent 2 years at home in Nigeria, looking at planes flying overhead, just wishing to get back on that plane. And the reality is that I didn't come back with a clear plan of what I wanted to do. I had £50 in my pocket, I had my foster parents' address, and the plan was to just land, roll up on my foster parents, and basically try and see if I could get into college so I could go to university and study medicine. That's what my dad wanted me to be. That's what I studied. I did A-levels, physics, chemistry, biology, geography, agricultural science, the whole shebang. I did really, really well. So that was the ambition. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be because I couldn't get any financial assistance. There was a rule back then that I needed to be in the country for 3 consecutive years. That meant that I had to go to work. So my first job was in a spa in Silver Hill in Hastings. And it was basically stacking shelves. And that was my very, very first job. But for me, being back in the UK was the opportunity to try and seek out whatever I could to try and make my life a little bit better. I mean, to be honest, my life was better because I was back here. I got back to where I felt I belonged, so that was a one-up for me. But through those early years, I had a ton of jobs. Yes, stacked shelves in a spa. I worked as a BT operator for a period of time. I worked in jewelry stores. I sold double glazing door to door. I did a ton of stuff. I worked for an insurance company, Hastings Direct. They were local on the doorstep, so they were a big recruiter employer at the time back then. So I was working there.
All right, so this right here is called Bottle Alley. It's called Bottle Alley because the walls in the back here are laced with like broken bottles, so Bottle Alley kind of coined its name from that. But I remember Bottle Alley because when I was homeless and I didn't have anywhere to sleep, this was one of the places that I kind of found warmth. And right above here, we've got the main road. So imagine cold, windy evening, you could get a little bit of refuge down here. Don't get me wrong, it's not just about me remembering this for being homeless and sleeping here on occasion. And we used to hop around quite a bit. I'll probably show you some other places as well. This is definitely one of them. I also remember when I was living just not too far down the road here in Warrior Square, I used to walk down here to work when I was more established. So this place has mixed emotions for me. This town has mixed emotions for me because it definitely stands as a marker to where it all began. And I appreciate the journey a lot more now. It's really true what they say. You can't connect the dots moving forward, you connect them going backwards. And sometimes you just have to take a moment to appreciate where you've come from to really be grateful for where you are right now.
I was forced to go to an interview for a job in a bank, which was prestigious back then, believe it or not. It wasn't the financial services of today that we all know and loathe. It was prestigious to work in a bank back then. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you need to have good credit to work in a bank, so what's the point in going for this interview? But the crux of the matter was, if I didn't go to the interview, I was going to be basically taking off benefits because I had to show effort that I was actually looking for a job, although I was spending most of my time creating music. And I reluctantly went to this interview to this bank or building society in Eastbourne. And I was interviewed by a lady called Jenny Berry. And Jenny, despite the fact that I rocked up in jeans, trainers, and leather jacket, saw something in me and gave me my first job in banking, which is absolutely crazy. And that's my mindset back then, guys. It's who rocks up to an interview wearing jeans, trainers, and a leather jacket? I don't know what I was thinking, but in my mind, I did not want the job. I didn't think I was going to get the job because of my history of bouncing checks and owing banks money. I never thought I was going to get the job. But suffice to say, she did give me a job. She thought, my customers are going to love you. I think there's something about you. And really, I started as a cashier. That's where it all started, really. And I went from Portman Building Society in Eastbourne to Nationwide because they got amalgamated together, and I moved from Nationwide into NatWest RBS. And it's in NatWest RBS that I started to look at how I could progress through financial services. And I worked in the Tunbridge Wells branch, I worked in the Hastings branch, and I found myself in a little branch in a town called Rye. And that's where I met someone that was really important to my journey, and her name is Mandy Mitchell.
I'm Mandy Mitchell. I met Pete when he came to work for me about 12 years ago. He worked for me for at least a couple of years before he moved on to bigger and better things.
So Mandy, first and foremost, I haven't seen you for ages.
I know.
So it's really, really good to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for actually just coming along to do this for me and this short. I wanted you on here because, I don't know whether you know this or not, maybe you do. If you don't, you're gonna know now. But you actually helped massively in terms of the steps that I took through banking and everything to where I am right now. And you were the person that made me kind of realize that, you know, yes, there's a retail banking, there's also corporate banking.
Yeah.
And you went out of your way to help me, knowing fully well that I would pretty much just leave a team really and no longer be with you guys in Rye. And so I wanted to kind of get your kind of like...
Oh God, sorry.
You're gonna have me going in a minute.
Oh.
And I did want you on because you really did help me. You kind of opened my eyes up to the fact that actually there are levels to working in finance. I've shared a lot of the time sort of across all of my videos that, you know, working in a bank when I first started was like, it was the place to be.
Yes,
working for a bank was really prestigious. Maybe not so much now, but it was back then. And I just never thought, number one, that I'd get a job in a bank, first and foremost. I never even thought there was even such a thing as corporate banking. And so I think my first question to you was, you know, or is, what was it like being my boss? Because I have no, I don't really know what I know that I wanted to put my head down, but what was it like actually managing me?
It was actually really easy. So I think being a manager of somebody, the thing that you really want is somebody that is extremely good at their job, that enjoys what they do, and actually doesn't have very many challenges. So you made it really easy for me.
So on the corporate banking side of things, because like I said, I didn't know that corporate banking even existed. And I can't remember how I even came across this job, but I think I mentioned to you, I don't know, maybe you actually maybe mentioned to me, you was like, actually, you might be really, really good for this. And I was like, well, I have no idea how I would even apply for this. And you actually sat there and actually helped me figure out what to put in my CV.
Yeah.
And how to actually position myself. And that was the first time that anybody went through, well, for a particular job role, you've got to make sure that your CV is written to meet that. I did not know that.
Yes, yeah. I suppose because when you're a manager of a team, you get to know your team, and you get to know that there are those people that do their job and they do it well, but they're going to be doing that job for life. Then you get those in your team that do their job, but you know they want to progress, but they're going to progress at their own pace. And then you get the Petes that come in, and you know, no matter how much they enjoy their job, no matter how good they are at the job, they're not going to stay, because you have a a career goal, you have a life plan, you know where you want to get to. And I suppose then your job as a boss changes and you become kind of a coach and a nurturer to get that person to the place that when it is their time to go, they're at the top of their game. It's a case of, it wasn't for me to hold you back, it was for me to help you move forward.
And there is something to be said though in terms of like the environment that you create, because as you know, I think I came from Hastings,
Yes,
which
yeah.
ironically is just around the corner from where we're actually filming this
Yeah.
right now, and where Katie now
Yeah.
works. The vibe was very, very different there, and I think managers are responsible for creating, and I certainly learned this when I ended up heading my own team in Canary Wharf. I was very, very conscious that the mindset and the environment that you create around the team is really down to the manager, or whether you want to like use a carrot or a stick or find somewhere in
Yes.
between
Yeah.
to kind of like help people be the best that they can. And I think you did a really good job doing that. And when I say that you went out of your way, I remember clearly, because obviously we used to speak about my parents and family and having to send money home and all this kind of stuff. And I remember I was looking, I think we had a conversation where I was like, either want to move houses or I wanted to do something and I needed to save money. And at the time I was living down in Warrior Square on Bumptious Mansions.
Yeah.
And you actually helped me spring clean that flat so I did not lose my deposit.
I
And
did
don't know
not
if you remember
help
that.
you. I cleaned that flat. Me and Katie cleaned that flat. Yes.
Yeah, and you didn't have to do that. You really, really didn't have
I
to
love
do that.
cleaning.
And yeah, I don't know whether you actually realise how much of a big helping hand that was, because I needed to move from that place to save money. And the place that I went to was the place that I ended up living in before I actually made the move to London to work in Canary Wharf. I didn't know I had the job, I was going to get a job in Canary Wharf at the time. But that was a massive, massive step. You're one of the two people that I always reference when I talk about my early career in finances. The first one is Jenny Berry, a lady who gave me my first job in Portman. I don't know how I got the job.
Oh, you're going to set me off again.
Then there was you, because it was like, okay, well, I'm retail banking now. And I always said I wanted to work in Canary Wharf, but I was like, okay, how do I get there?
Oh yeah,
And
you had a clear goal
Yeah.
of where you wanted to be.
And going corporate banking, it set my eyes open to like, hold up a second. You can make these transitions into these different areas and maneuver your way around
Yeah.
and get to certain levels. And you were certainly the catalyst for that on the very, very early parts. I was 4 years into my career at that point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, yeah. And I think you did probably 2.5 years with me,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
in Rye. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
They were fun times.
they were.
They were really, really fun times. And again, I appreciate you for coming on. And I cannot recount my story without mentioning you in it. And with everything that I want to do moving forward, someone said something to me years back, so you can't connect the dots moving forward, you can only connect them moving backwards. And when I connect the dots moving backwards, everything that happens all makes sense in terms of the people that you meet and the interactions that you have. When I think of my time with NatWest, I think of you and I remember you. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure, Pete.
Cool, man. So how was that for you?
It's been interesting. I don't know if I've got the exact phrases to kind of describe it. It's been nice speaking to my foster dad, or well, my dad, because all the way through the years there have been things that I didn't know, pictures that I've never seen. I mean, I don't actually have any childhood pictures. I don't have any family pictures, any pictures of me as a kid. I think that's really weird. I mean, if I speak to most people have got like childhood pictures. I don't have any. And to hear him talk about the fact that, you know, he didn't even know that I was going to be shipped off to Nigeria, that was a revelation for me. I didn't know that they felt that I thought that they were to blame for me going off. These were things that were completely outside of my control, outside of their control, that I'm literally just learning for the first time today. And it's been nice to have those kind of conversations. One of the things that I've struggled with, I guess, all the way through my adult life is, understanding why I am the way I am. And that's impacted, maybe some of the things that I do now. And it's been nice to kind of get a little bit of to have a conversation that gives me a little bit of an inkling or an insight into maybe answering those questions just for myself. So that's been really, really good. It's been great speaking to Mandy as well. I've not seen her for years and years and years, but she was a pivotal point to help me realize that actually you can work through an industry or work through a sector. And the financial services industry is a very fragmented kind of like industry. You've got retail banking, corporate banking, wealth management. You've got so many like different areas that you could go into. Oftentimes making the jump from one to the other is very, very difficult. And Mandy was a key catalyst for me going from retail banking into corporate banking. I was always told that it's very, very hard to basically do that. She went out of her way to help me because I guess she saw something in me, and I'm eternally, eternally grateful for her doing that, because if she hadn't, I don't know where I'd be. So the conversations today have been great, just for my own personal insight and for my own personal reasons. They've been great, but I hope that for people who may be watching this, you actually take something away from it as well, because at the end of the day, our future is not determined by our past. We are not byproducts of our environment. We are definitely byproducts of our experience, but we get to decide what we want to be and what we venture to do and the things that we do or do not agree to.
So, let's talk about Canary Wharf. Everybody has moments in lives where they just feel like, I've made it. And Canary Wharf for me was that moment in 2012. It was a combination of years of dreaming of that place, having walked downstairs in the mall and watched people suited and booted. And because my favorite movie is Pursuit of Happiness, it was my place where I felt, oh my God, if you work here, you've made it. It's got to be a Pursuit of Happiness moment. And in 2012, I remember getting a phone call from a guy called Jason Webber. He's a recruiter. And I'd just moved back to London thinking, right, I want to get a job in the city. How hard could it be? Little did I know, because I don't have a university degree, well, actually, Canary Wharf is extremely hard to get into. But I got a call from Jason, and he said, I've got a job that I think you're going to be absolutely fantastic for. It's not far from where you live, because back then you used to put your address on your CV. It's at this place, and I said, okay, what building in Canary Wharf? And he went, level 50, the top floor. And that building is iconic for me because I used to watch The Apprentice, and that flyover of that building in Canary Wharf, One Canada Square, I was buzzing. And I remember my first time there. I had to go through stages for this interview, had a telephone interview, and to get myself in the mindset, I actually went to Canary Wharf. I sat in a coffee shop and I took the phone call, and I just pictured myself working there as I went through that first interview over the phone. I was lucky enough to be invited to the first round of face-to-face. And I remember Jason in his prep saying to me, don't turn up late. So I rocked up 15 minutes early, happy with myself. And I remember being shown into the boardroom on the 50th floor to walk into 25 other people, all there, 25 minutes early. I was the last person to walk into that room. But for me, that day always sticks in my mind because it was the day that I felt like I landed the job in Canary Wharf, because it was a tough day. It was a competitive day. And oftentimes when you find yourself in that kind of situation, it's very easy to doubt yourself. And believe me, imposter syndrome starts to kick in, because it did for me. I looked around the table, looked at all of the guys that were around there. These guys were ex-stockbrokers, Oxford-educated guys. And there's me with no university degree, a little bit of experience from retail banking and corporate banking, trying to get into the wealth management world to work for this Fortune 100 company that was doing new and great things in an industry, being a disruptor. And I always remember looking out at the view of London, the Thames, London Bridge, the Shard, or Tower Bridge, I should say, the Shard, and thinking, I'm not letting any of these guys have one up on me today. And that view was like, I remember just thinking to myself, I'm never going to get another opportunity like this. Make the best of it right now. And throughout the day, they were cutting people. I was one of 3 left out of 25. And that began my journey in Canary Wharf. And it changed my life.
What comes next is very, very exciting. I've not been here since 2017. I have the fondest memories of this place. It represents 5 years that have been the most productive of my career ever. I met people there who are still very much my friends, and every time I'm in the city, I make sure that I have time to just visit, even if it's just for maybe 2-3 minutes, just to sit there and appreciate and just think back to everything that happened. And we have access to the old office on the 50th floor. It's no longer occupied by the business that I worked for, but UCL, who now occupy that space, have allowed us access to it. And I can't wait to see what it's like now. It's part of UCL, so it's a college now. And I can't imagine how inspiring it is for students who are privileged enough to use that floor looking out over London. I mean, it does something to you from a mindset point of view. It just makes you just beast, like you just want more because you're sitting on the top of the world. It's amazing. So I cannot wait to see what it's like now. And I'm sure it's going to bring back a load of memories of working there and being at what has been my professional best today.
Alright guys, so welcome to level 50. This used to be my old office. Now the company that I used to work for is no longer on this floor. However, this is now occupied by UCL, who have been really kind to allow us to film here this afternoon. And what I'm going to do is basically just give you a tour of the old workspace and talk you through my first impressions coming here for an interview. It looks very, very different, but I'm telling you right now, you'll probably feel the same way that I felt when you see the view out of this window right here, and that's what I'm going to show you first. So we used to have like a meeting area here. We also had a kitchen area, around about the same here. Men's toilets right there, ladies' toilets here. And then after this point, we had a bit of a partition and we had breakout rooms on either side here. But essentially, my first time that I came here for an interview, I got walked from reception to get to this point where essentially I was walked into the main boardroom. Picture that boardroom on this side of the building with this view. And let me tell you this right now, it's what kept me going, really, to be honest. It was amazing. And I'm sure you will agree that if you come here on an interview for a high pressure job, this will motivate you. If this doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. Let's go this way. So here, they've got breakout rooms. We had breakout rooms here. Now this, with the UCL, is now an auditorium. But back when I was here, we had our CEO, MD, Dom, sit up here. He had the corner office, essentially, because he was the big boss. Dom actually still works for the business because the business is still in the UK, but they're no longer here in Canary Wharf. But this was Dom's office. This was the big man's office, essentially. And this, every morning, you walk into an office, you just want to do stuff like, look at this view, like look at that, look at
Look at the West Ham Stadium. Look at the Olympic Village. It's incredible. How do you not feel motivated working in this kind of place? Now, let me show you where I used to sit. And I have to say, if you're a student taking lectures in this room, what an amazing place to have some lectures. I mean, seriously. Hopefully people will actually get some work done, because I'm not sure. I know that, you know, first time I'll be staring at the view more than anything else. All right, okay, so this is my work area. So through here, I mean, they've got a few things set up with UCL at the moment, but this is where I used to work. We had a bank of desks here, and there were the men's toilets right there. My desk was around about here, alongside maybe 5 other people. There was a row of 6 that we had here, and we would work, and we would have our target kind of like board here that we would work towards, and would be on the phone. My first job here was on the telephone, pretty much, just taking calls, trying to sell and make business deals and just interact with financial advisors around the product that we had. It was revolutionary at the time. We did some incredible work here, and we really helped people change their retirement planning. And that's why I'm so passionate about pensions. And if you watch any of my videos, this is where it all began in terms of the passion for retirement specifically. This was a great place to work. We're now going to go here. So we had a row of sales team here. We also had our marketing team here. In the end, the corner office here was a HR office. But before then, it belonged to a sales director, who I won't mention. And I'm just going to show you his office, because his view is also very, very good. He was the opposite to Dom, who was the CEO. And this room right here was his office. And I don't know, do you think Dave got a better view than Dom? The view from here is amazing. There are mornings, I remember a couple of mornings where I came in here where we were above the cloud canopy. We've got HSBC in the background poking out of the clouds, and yeah, this has really fond memories. Now, imagine this room right here. Just have a look at this. Imagine walking in to your interview room, to a room just like this, about the same size, massive screens, all branded with your company brand, 25 dudes sat here, and you are the last person to arrive on a high pressure day for a job that you've always wanted and thought, I would love to work in Canary Wharf. Imagine what that is like. Imagine what that is like. The only difference here is the decors was slightly different, and this view was facing southwest of London, so the River Thames, Tower Bridge, the Shard, so on and so forth. But just imagine that. In the boardroom on that day, I was sat around about here for that day, with 25 other dudes around me, all of which had more experience than me. And what the company did really smartly was they actually planted 2 moles. They planted Vicky and they planted Ritu as moles. So current employees that worked for the business, that were there to basically give an independent assessment of who's here, who's being serious, who's being a joker, which is another tip. If you go for an interview in a big company, just don't assume that everybody that's interviewing with you is vying for the job. Some of them are just there to check you out. It happened to be the case for me when I was here. And I'm quite a social person when I need to be. I was chatting to Vicky, and I think she took a liking to me and fed good things back, which is why I made it through the first day. But it's weird being here. It really, really is. It's been 4 years since I've been on this floor. I took a picture of the boardroom the day that I left here, and it was a very, very hard decision to make. 5 years, the best time. I've made friends that I still speak to today, and they were the most rewarding of my career so far. If anything, I'm trying to chase what I achieved here and what I'm doing now. And I hope by inspiring people, I'll be able to get that sense of satisfaction and achievement as well.
If you've been watching this process of filming this has been one where I've been able to gain some perspective and answer some very personal questions.
But the reason why I wanted to make this was to essentially give people an insight to my past, to tell you and to show you what is possible for you. And I'm acutely aware that a lot of people who watch my channel are between the ages of 18 and really 35. I'm older than all of you in that age bracket. My past is my past, but I'm not a product of my own environment. And so if you take anything from this, please take this one idea that you are in no shape or form a product of your environment. You can dare to dream bigger. You can dare to aspire for things that are different to what you are currently seeing outside of your window right now. And you don't have to be special to be able to do it. You just have to have the vision, the willingness to try, maybe sometimes the foolishness to take the punishment when you fail. But all of the skills around ambition, drive, maneuvering corporate environments, getting promotions in professional environments, those things are all developed over time. If I can do it, you can absolutely do it. And so in ending this, I wanted to perhaps put a challenge out there. How big do you dare to dream? How far do you dare to venture? And I'm passing the baton over to you. I will see you at work.